Happening. I just thought today we'd just go over the tragedy of Frank Darabont and The Walking Dead. As I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with him, I'll quickly do a brief overview of Frank's short but potent filmography. Frank sold his first screenplay titled Black Cat Run in 1986, but it was not produced for more than a decade as a television film under the same name. Darabont was approached by Chunk Russell, who was a producer on Hell Night and The Seduction, with an offer to become his writing partner as he'd become interested in Darabont's writing after reading a spec script written for the television series MASH. The two began working on a script for a remake of the film The Blob, which they had planned to shop around studios. That was interrupted when they were both hired to rewrite Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors, with Russell directing the film. The two were given only 2 weeks to rewrite the script and accomplished it in 10 days. The success from A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 meant that they were able to publish their original script that they made for The Blob. By then, a successful writer for hire, Darabont was then commissioned to write The Fly 2, an early draft of The Rocketeer, and an unproduced sequel to Commando. Darabont made his own directorial debut with Burned Alive, a television movie with a $2 million budget that aired on US network TV in 1990. He followed this with an extended run as George Lucas's writer for the television series Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. In the early 2000s, Frank would write a draft for the fourth Indiana Jones film, which I'll probably do a video on at some point if anyone's interested. I just think it's a lot to get into in this video. It's about The Walking Dead, you know what I mean? You need to keep things moving along, but yeah, Frank was very much involved with the character of Indiana Jones in the early 2000s. Going back to the 90s, Darabont made good with a deal with Stephen King by writing and directing an adaptation of The Shawshank Redemption. Rob Reiner, who had previously adapted King's novella The Body into Stand By Me, offered Darabont $2.5 million to attempt to write and direct Shawshank. He planned to cast Tom Cruise as the part of Andy and Harrison Ford as Red. Darabont seriously considered and liked Rhino's vision, but he ultimately decided it was a chance to do something great by directing the film himself. The film didn't really do well at the box office, as I'm sure a lot of you know. Like a lot of Frank's work, it sort of picked up in like DVD sales and after the market fact, word of mouth. It did start to get a bit more reception after it was nominated for some Academy Awards. It became the most rented movie in 1995. And today it's like obviously the highest rated film on IMDb, and I think in the British census for a vote of what would be the greatest film of all time, Shawshank won that as well. Stephen King would be so pleased with the adaptation that he'd end up sending Frank the $5,000 back that he'd used to commission the story from. Frank framed the picture and hangs it up on his wall to this day. This would spark a years-long friendship in which Frank would further adapt Stephen King's work to the screen, first with The Green Mile and then next with The Mist. As I'm sure you'll notice, The Mist features a lot of the cast from The Walking Dead: Dale, Carol, Sam Wither's character, whatever he was called, but most notably Laurie Holden, playing second lead Amanda Dunphy. She also features in The Majestic, another Frank Darabont film, and his only other film that I haven't mentioned yet, about a Hollywood writer being blacklisted in the 50s. So all in all, Frank made 4 feature films and 1 TV movie before he made the shift towards TV. So yeah, after doing the first season of The Walking Dead, AMC basically demanded 13 episodes instead of 6, and also they took away 30% of the budget from what it had been on the first season. This obviously led to the meandering around the highway for about pretty much most of the second season before they end up on the farm. The budget just simply wasn't there for what Frank had envisioned. For example, in the first episode, the man in the tank is Sam Wither, obviously out the Mist, who was mates with Frank. He seemingly plays a meaningless like dead soldier holding an hand grenade, which becomes like obviously relevant to Rick as it's his last line of defense when he runs out of ammo against the zombies. So initially I thought this was just a bit of environmental storytelling, but then after watching an interview of him, Sam Wither, he goes further into the plans for what this scene was actually going to be about.
And he asked me, he said, listen, I'm going to do this thing, and this is the first time I can talk about it in the press. He's like, look, I think it'd be really cool to tell a prequel story about how Atlanta fell, do Black Hawk Down, but with zombies, and have a few of the main characters pass through, but it's like a Twilight Zone episode, the lead will be you, and your character will go through, and you're a soldier, and all these horrible things happen, and the chain of command breaks down, and and eventually you have to take out your superior officer to save a bunch of people, and then eventually in the end you get bit, and then you're crawling, and he's pitching me this, and then you're crawling, blah blah, and you crawl into a tank, and you have this grenade, and you're going to blow yourself up, and then you're like, you know what, and you set the grenade next to you, and then you die. And then we reprise the scene from the pilot where Rick crawls in the tank, and there's a zombie there, and if you look closely, I played that zombie because we were setting up this prequel that we were going to do. So if you watch the pilot of Walking Dead, that's me in the tank as the zombie who goes, and Rick blasts him, and then he gets deafened, and then he gets that grenade which saves them at the end of the season. Well, we're going to tell the history of that grenade. We're going to tell also how another character who is being introduced in the second season, how he comes to a certain thing. We're going to do all this cool stuff. Not doing it now, not happening. Why? Because AMC wanted to save a few bucks. And besides, so that is just one example of the kind of cool, awesome forethought that this guy's put into this show.
So yeah, as you just heard it there, this would have been a standalone episode that focused on the outbreak, which is obviously famously the bit that's been left out of the Walking Dead TV show, with Rick waking up five or 6 weeks after the outbreak. The opener allegedly flashed back to the early days of the zombie apocalypse. The entire episode would attract a squad of army rangers dropping into Atlanta. Then they get trapped in a zombie outbreak. So yeah, I'm just reading if I just read a quote about it here. All I have to do is travel maybe a dozen blocks or so, simple journey, but what starts as a no-brainer scenario goes from the city is being screwed to holy shit, we've lost control of the world's ending, Darabont describes in a letter to AICN. Along the way, the soldiers encounter some familiar faces from the show. Picture a squad arriving at a maimed barracks where some civilians are being held back from leaving the city on shoot-to-kill orders. Stop the spread of the contaminant. It's a panicked, high-intensity scene, and in the crowd of desperate people we find Andrea and Amy. The barricade gunners panic, the civilians start to get mowed down by machine gun fire, and in this melee, the girls get pulled to safety by some old guy they don't even know yet. It's Dale. He's a nobody to the soldiers, but obviously, as we've seen in the first season, it's Dale. Just some guy who had the opportunity to do the right thing and reacted in the right moment. The episode basically ended with Sam's character being the last alive of his squad, clinging on a hand grenade as his last line of defence in a tank. Sam seems to be one of the few actors that's actually spoke out about it. So yeah, Dale, the actor who plays him, Jeremy DeMoon, he also wasn't happy, as him and Frank were great friends. He was obviously in the mist as well, but he was fuming about Frank's, like, what happened to him, so he kept arguing with, like, the management, and they ended up killing off his character pretty early compared to in the comics. To pour salt in the wounds, AMC also basically said that Frank was very, like, loud and hard to work with, and it's just a completely unsubstantiated rumour. Yeah, pretty shit really. They just sort of canned all Frank's plans over a bit of moolah. So yeah, that's where the story sort of sat. The actors had their problems with the studio, but not much had happened. But relatively recently, in 2021, Frank won his lawsuit against AMC, ending in a deal that calls for AMC networks to pay Darabont and CAA. So they'll continue to receive a share of the future profits from any streaming deals on both The Walking Dead and any of its spin-offs. So any Walking Dead related content, the settlement buys out the plaintiff's rights. This was combined with another lawsuit implying fiduciary abuses by AMC, and this was also settled with both of them netting Frank combined $200 million. So yeah, a bit of a positive ending there. A lot of these stories I talk about on this channel here, unfortunately, don't have an happy ending. But I'm happy to say this one, while it might have cost him his film career, Frank's walked away with a cool $200 million. So you've got a good day for Frank, that must have been. So yeah, more than anything, it's just a waste of a great IP. It just seems as though if Frank stayed, it could have been on the level of like Breaking Bad or anything put out by HBO, cutting out all the filler crap that plagued the later seasons. Luckily, Frank came out of retirement recently to join the Stranger Things Season 5 cast, where he's said to direct 2 episodes. Here's a quote from Variety. "What really dragged me out of retirement was me and my wife. I really loved that show. Darabont said about Stranger Things. Our content now is just filled with horrible people doing horrible things for greedy reasons, but Stranger Things has so much heart. That positivity is something else. I really responded to it. When asked if Stranger Things 5 would lead to future directorial efforts, Darabont responded, "Who knows? I haven't missed the business, but I have missed being on set with creative people. It may well be one and done, but we've still got time." So yeah, looking like he might get up to something soon, hopefully. Hopefully we'll see Frank directing a feature sooner rather than later, but hopefully that makes AMC learn the lesson. Fuck over him, and you're just gonna get done for dough. Do you know what I mean? Frank Darabont, mate, just edges off for a cool $200 million. Yeah, it all worked out for Frank in the end, didn't it? Take that, AMC. So yes, that's about it. I'll see you when I see you.